Good morning. I'm Rick Riss. I'm the Director of Consulting at ARC. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Magnus. And Magnus, can you tell us that you are the head of innovation? Can you tell us the divisions that you are responsible for?
I certainly can. It's called Pharmaceutical Technology and Development, PT&D in short. In a simplified way, you can say that it's between drug discovery and manufacturing. So we develop the medicines from the drugs and turn those into recipes for manufacturing. We also provide clinical patients with the clinical materials.
Great. So you have activities with AI, robotics, and software-defined automation. How are these impacting your manufacturing processes?
Yeah, so since we are in the early phases of essentially writing the recipes for manufacturing, what we do is that we try as much as we possibly can to optimize the way that we make our medicines, which means the time it takes. It also means the sustainability impacts, carbon dioxide impacts. So we view AI, automation, physical and non-physical, if you like, so robotics as well as this whole new era of agentic systems, as probably the key technology to succeed in making medicines in completely different ways in the future. And we're busy laying the groundwork for that right now, and I'll be talking about it at the conference here later today.
Great. So what types of digital twins and simulation do you use? Are you using this for the design purpose? Are you using it for operator training? Or do you use it for the operation of the process?
All of the above. It's definitely so that where it starts for us is with a digital twin of the biological cell. You can imagine what you can achieve when you have full understanding of the biological cell. You have a target, disease target, that you know you want to impact. Now, if you know how the cell actually works, then you can optimize that impact. So a digital twin of the cell is very, very important, which is where the omics comes in. But then you just go up in scale, and then you can really imagine, I believe, a digital twin of a patient with all the organs and everything that sits together in the body. When you have a digital twin of that, then you know how to provide a medicine for a particular target. But then, of course, you need to turn, a drug for that target, I should say. But then you need to turn that drug into a medicine, which is, again, is my role as head of innovation, to look for new technologies to do that. Then you come into digital twins related to the process science around how you actually make a medicine from that drug. And those are multi-steps involved in there. It's everything from chemical synthesis to formulation, but in the end also, if it's a tablet, for instance, how you make that tablet in the best possible way. Different forms of digital twins with different hierarchies. Some are mechanistic, some are hybrid, some are data-driven, some are even foundational model type digital twins, if you like. So it really depends on where in the process you're talking about. Then you can also, you also probably realize that we have digital twins for an operator. How is the plant set up from a, there you can define that from a digital twin. So it's everything at the molecular scale to laboratory settings and manufacturing settings that we work with digital twins.
Actually, that's quite amazing. That's a quite wider range of digital twin techniques that I've seen in most of the people here at ARC that are focused on automation. But so what forms of, in the last year, what are some of the major initiatives that you have had that actually improve the operation of the manufacture of your drugs?
So we have been very busy laying a foundation of data across our pharmaceutical technology and development. And on top of that data, we are now making sure that we have the appropriate business process aligned. You can imagine the business process being the ways of working that describes exactly how we turn that drug into a medicine. Don't forget, we're a highly regulated business, and we should be. The regulator tells us how we need to prove that our medicines are safe, efficacious, but we also want to make them as cheaply as possible. But safe and efficacious is what they're asking for, proof. And that whole way of working in that business process really provides the data that we need to tell the regulator that this is what we have done and here's the result. Now, with AI, with generative AI, I should say, we see a way to automate that way of working to a significant degree. The generation of documentation around a regulatory submission file, for instance. But also much deeper than that. We see a way to automate the way that we do mathematical modeling. So typically, let's say we had 30 mathematical modelers. But we also have people in the laboratory who really knows the chemistry and the material science of formulations. They're not experts in mathematical modeling, so they would typically call the modelers for some help before they go in and do a design of experiments, for instance. Now we've shown that we can really democratize the ability to do very advanced mathematical modeling. So that's another way of automation. So automation and generative AI sits at different levels in what we have done. But fundamentally, returning to the beginning of a question, is about that data foundation. So that Gen AI can act, the mathematical models can fetch parameter data from data products automatically and deliver a simulation on the back of a mathematical model. And it's all tied up into a big system that we're busy delivering at the moment with data and business processes really well defined and in order. I call it data and business process house in order. With our digital twins, what I talked about before, from early to late, connected into a whole system. And then with an agentic layer to enable that automation, but always with human in the loop. That's actually very, very important. And we're busy figuring out exactly how we're going to make all those three layers intersect. And at the top of this pyramid, if you like, then we have a very cognitive LLM that can connect into all the various bits and pieces across those three different layers. And we call that a holistic digital twin for PT&D, or the program is called the AI Development Agent, actually. But again, the foundational layer of data is absolutely key for everything. It's also one of the hardest things to achieve.
Well, that leads right into my next question. I was going to ask you, well, what are some of the most serious challenges you have? And it seems to me that some of your challenges are data. Is it data accuracy, data timing, data integration across multiple data types? But it also seems that maybe some of your challenges might be associated with the AI tools. You seem to be very, proficient in the use of some of these AI tools already. So what are your biggest challenges?
It's a really good question. There are four main challenges that you need to consider for any transformation, I believe, technological transformation, and they are, you need to work with your people. They need to understand generative AI and what it can do. You need to work with the data and make sure that the generative AI has access to the data. As we know, it's very hungry and the food is data. But then you need to work on your business processes. Because if you're developing a new way of working, a new generative AI tool to automate things, you need to get rid of the old way of working. So that business process is very, very important. And then fourthly, you have the technology itself, the LLMs, the agents, the MCPs, the A2As, the APIs, all of these things that are needed as well. If I'm to choose what I thought 2 years ago would be the most challenging was the technology. I wasn't sure that the LLMs would evolve into agentic capabilities with the pace that it has done. So I think that might even be the simplest. You have then the business process where you need to figure out new ways of working. And that's hard. If you've been in a company like many of our colleagues have for 20, 30 years and you're expert, and then all of a sudden a new technology offers a new way of working, that requires quite a bit of upskilling and inspiration in order to actually succeed with that change from a management perspective, and an openness with our people for that change. Data is probably the most challenging. We know from tests that unless you reach what's called FAIR, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, level 6 with our data, which is a sort of framework that we use, and it's an accepted framework. Unless you reach to that FAIR level 6, you're not going to get the Gen AI quality output that we demand from a generative AI. We will not put our patients at risk, that nothing will make us go down that path. So, this whole debate about hallucination and so on, for us it's much deeper than that. We have to make sure that the data quality is right so that the output quality is very, very high. It has to do with historical data, structured and unstructured data, that we need to make sure that if an LLM has access to it, that quality of that data has to be very strong. Now, I do think that for a company like ours or an industry like the pharmaceutical industry, I actually believe that generative AI lends itself quite natural for this because our data is of very, very high quality. Because the regulator demands our data to be of very high quality. So the way we write our documents, etc., is with an agreed standard and so on. So when it's about fine-tuning an LLM, for instance, with that information, it does really well. So that's a very long answer to a short question. It is the data, I believe, that is going to be the hardest.
Great. It sounds like you have a very effective quality organization within AstraZeneca.
We do.
So now, AstraZeneca is constantly innovating new drugs. And as head of innovation, are you responsible for innovating the new drugs or innovating the new process to bring those drugs into manufacturing? How does innovation work in new product development?
The latter. So my role is to ensure that the drugs that come our way, that we have the process technology and the technology broadly, the technology to make sure that those drugs are very, very efficiently turned into medicines. But as head of innovation in PT&D where I am, I'm not responsible for the new drugs or the innovative ways to find the new drugs, but it is that latter part where we develop the recipes for manufacturing, we ensure that the medicine is safe. We also supply clinical testing material for our patients to a large degree.
So Magnus, thank you today for such incredibly good insights in how the latest technology, everyone needs innovation, and clearly you have shown us some really good things. We hope you enjoy the rest of your stay at the ARC Forum.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.